Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's edition of our midweek Maranatha Prophecy Update. Super glad having all of you joining along with us, and I know everyone will be joining the feed here shortly. Glad to have all of you guys, though. I see Crisco Duck, Pookie, Caterlin, all you guys. Gerard, good afternoon, Gerard. Glad to have you guys joining with us today. So we've got just a wonderful and very special program today. Today, we've got John Holler and Olivier Melnick that are joining along with us. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Hello.
Hey, well, good to be on your show.
Glad to have you guys on, and I think that we've got a few things to talk about today. Some things that have been talked about, some things that I don't think have been talked about either that I think are going to be a little interesting on today's program as we're going to be discussing this Trump's peace plan here. We'll be talking about Judea, Samaria, some of his statements regarding that, the synagogue attack that happened today on Yom Kippur, Day of Atonement. What about what is this this star? The star of Remphan, is it connected to the Star of David, or is that just one more anti-Israel lie that is being put out there? A whole bunch of things, guys, to talk about. So, but first, I want to open it up to this right here, as everyone is seeing in the image for today. Chairman of the Board of Peace. So this one was a little bit of an interesting one to me. Of course, as both of you, I'm sure, were watching that meeting there with Trump and Netanyahu the other day, and Trump was saying that I guess world leaders were wanting him to form this board on this whole thing, and that in fact. What is it? Forbes is saying Trump proposes new Gaza government board of peace with himself as the chairman. What are your thoughts about that, gentlemen? Want to go for that first, Olivier?
John? I was going to let John start.
Go for it.
I mean, I'll start if you're begging me. Look, I think that there's a few big picture items here. I think I've heard that Hamas has rejected the proposal, which was, I think, not unexpected. But again, I go back to how I felt back in 2020 when Trump came out with that peace and prosperity plan, or whatever they called it, that Jared Kushner had put together, which was then followed subsequent to that by the Abraham Accords. And I just think I object to the notion that I've seen advanced that Trump is playing 4D chess. I don't think you mess around with Israel. I do believe that Genesis 12 means what it says and says what it means. And I think it's just there are consequences to doing this, whether you have good intentions or not. And none of these peace deals have ever worked. These are just regurgitations of things that we've seen over and over and over again from Washington, from the UK, other countries, and they've never worked. They've never been accepted by the Arabs who inhabit the areas of Judea and Samaria and Gaza. And they never will. I mean, this is, I don't know how many times we have to go down this road. Oslo, Resolution 2334, all the different resolutions that have been adopted against Israel by the UN. And then what we saw just a week ago, this big meeting at the UN that was preceded by a vote that was 142 to 10 with 10 abstentions, the maps of showing the countries that now support the creation for the first time of a Palestinian state are completely colored in, pretty much.
It's like actually every 151. It's 151 as of right now, I think.
Oh, is it really? Okay. I mean, there's a few holdouts. You've got some in Central Europe, Italy,
Greece, I think.
Sweden, Greece, Central, Southern Europe, but it's pretty much everywhere else they're supporting this. Yep. And so, but look, this is what we expected to happen. So we could talk about that. This ridiculous notion that East Jerusalem is the capital. This is something else we need to deal with. But I'm disappointed that Trump came out with this plan, and in the context of what he did subsequent to that.
What's interesting to me, guys, is that the plan has some very, very odd parts to it, and then John and I did a show that I posted. I think I posted this morning actually on the same topic, so refresh my memory, John. When did the plan become official? When did Trump present it? Was it on? It was a week ago, right?
It was when Bibi was at the White House last week. So no, wait a minute. It was early this week.
It was early this week. It was Monday.
Okay, so Monday.
This is the funny thing is that
Monday.
In the times we live in, everything gets compressed and stretched out all at the same time.
Right.
But so here is my point. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So we got 4 days. When they presented the plan, they said that they would give Hamas up to 72 hours to come back with a yay or a nay on accepting the peace plan. And Hamas, there's different voices. Some people say Hamas has rejected the plan, which again, agreeing with Tom, would not surprise me. There's also other people saying that Hamas is reviewing and they're considering, and which is another way that they do things. They just buy time to do other things under the guise of just diplomacy and discussion, but they're just regrouping, organizing for their next attack or whatever they want to do. But here we are past the 72 hours, and I just ran into, there was an article right before we got started where Trump is now going to give Hamas a red line that they need to know they cannot cross another 3 to 4 days. It's like, how many more extensions do they need? And how serious are we or are we not by just saying, okay, another 2 days? It's like, my little boy when he was a kid, go to bed, 5 minutes, Dad, just 5 minutes, 5 minutes, just 5 minutes, Dad. And you give an extra 5 minutes, and it's like, what does that say about you? And so we keep giving Hamas, the extra 5 minutes every day. And I think at this point, they need to know, there's got to be a hard stop. Why is there not?
I think the reason why there's not a hard, and there can actually be a number of reasons. One of them is, as we speak right now, Israel has almost completely surrounded Gaza City. And so perhaps part of that is in them being at a place where they feel that they are completely set up for victory. That is a potential way of looking at that. I don't know. I think the biggest thing, though, that Israel is and has been facing is in, listen, it's a multi-front war, and probably one of the largest fronts of that war is the propaganda aspect of that. I know that John was going to address a little bit of that as well. The propaganda war on them is a major, major thing that they have and are dealing with. And here's part of the problem, though, is that the longer this goes on, the worse that situation is getting. And I do agree. They just need to get in there and they need to get her done. It's just like you said with the parent, when you give your child, okay, I'm going to count to 3. You know what that means? That means I'm giving you 3 opportunities to disobey me, because you know that a child who is conducting themselves in some kind of sin at the moment is going to take that to the limit. And that's exactly what Hamas has been doing. And so the more opportunities we give them, the more they're going to do this.
Yeah.
I think that's right.
Yeah. And so, and at this point, I've talked to a few people this week who actually that we tried to send them supplies to our ministry for the IDF, and you're right. They're almost done with Hamas. I mean, they're starting to reorganize to go. I mean, because Gaza is not the only hot spot in Israel. Unfortunately, it's the one that they have to kind of sanitize, so to speak. But there's Judea, Samaria. Most people call it the West Bank. There's other areas. Like the border with Syria is also an issue, and so they're reorganizing the IDF and doing different things to get situated on different fronts as we speak right now. But I think, like you said, Kurt, they're doing pretty well with Hamas in the Strip and in Gaza City. I don't know. I mean, we don't have. I mean, even if we had, we don't have the intel that they all have. But from what I'm getting, what's allowed to come all the way to people like us is that they're pretty close to being completely done.
Well, was it like? See, this is what's hard with talking about this now, because there's so many different things going on in this particular space, let alone everything else. So was it 2 weeks ago Monday that they had a terror attack in Jerusalem where they shot up a bus?
We need to keep a calendar of those things because it's impossible to keep up.
Seriously.
I'm pretty sure it was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
Monday.
yeah,
It was
something.
last
Yeah,
week they were all everybody was at the UN.
yeah.
But I mean, that was at a major, where that shooting attack occurred. They're at a major junction, Orthodox neighborhood in Jerusalem. And that was all done by design, and then we had a stabbing attack at a synagogue on Yom Kippur today in Manchester, England.
3 dead.
Oh, is it 3 now?
3.
Well,
I
it's
think
2
it's 3.
dead and the victim, I think.
I think
And
the-
the perpetrator. Sorry.
Yeah. He's one of the 3, or at least that was as of earlier.
I have friends
Yes.
in the UK, by the way, who are concerned about posting about that and telling the truth about that, because they'll be arrested and probably thrown into jail next to the guy. Oh no, the guy's not in jail. If the guy had lived, they would be thrown into jail next to the guy who did the attack.
Yeah,
because it would be an offensive tweet.
Yeah, UK is probably of all the Western European countries that have gone, for lack of a better word of saying it, Sharia compliant. They're probably the one who have gone the furthest in so many ways. France is not far behind. I mean, last week in France, there was a man who was coming home from synagogue in a suburb of Paris, and he was, he made a mistake of wearing his yarmulke on the street. He got attacked. And beaten to a pulp. And the week before in Germany, I'm sure you guys both know, sign on a window of a restaurant, Jews not allowed here.
Right.
I mean, we're back in
seeing
the 30s
history
and
repeat
40s.
itself.
Sorry?
We're seeing history repeat itself.
Oh yeah, we're back in the 30s and 40s, and actually, I try to make a case at the conference that John and I just participated in a week or 2 weeks ago. I try to make a case looking at showing some stats that in Nazi Germany, only 9% of all Germans were Nazis, official Nazis. 9% of like 70 million at the time, or 69 million, even if you take the sympathizers, the people that actually would agree with the Nazis and say, you know what, I'm not going to sign, I'm not going to get a card, but I agree we need to help them, it would be up to a maximum of 30%. The survey was taken recently in the Middle East, not by a Jewish firm, not by an American firm, but by a Middle Eastern firm. And the result was that 77% of all Palestinians, encompassing Gaza Strip, Judea, Samaria, and everywhere else, 77% of all Palestinians agreed that Hamas should not be disarmed and Hamas should continue doing what they're doing. 77%. So from that perspective, Kurt, we are actually not in the 30s and 40s again. It's worse.
Right.
The numbers are worse.
That's a good point. And getting back to what happened today there in Manchester, you've got Keir Starmer, who he's a piece of work. Keir Starmer, who really is talking out of both sides of his mouth. I don't know if you listened to anything that he said. And we're going to send our police to guard the synagogues now. What did you think was going to happen? Okay. What did you think was going to happen? So now
Nothing.
he's sending them to guard the synagogues. So he says this on one end to try and, I guess, get the votes on one end. I don't know. On the other end, he's doing everything to allow Islam and Sharia law and all of these things to so be heavily rooted in London, in various places there of England. It's not even funny. So he's talking out of both sides of his mouth, because the very things that he allows there right now are adding to and feeding into the very problems that are existing even today. Again, you've got those that are killed, those that are wounded here on today, the holiest day there for the Jews.
Right.
And I will add too, I don't know if you all know who Natasha Hausdorff is. She's a barrister, an attorney in the UK, and she's an incredibly articulate, outspoken, direct, clear advocate for Israel, and particularly in the application of so-called international law to Israel, the procedures of the International Criminal Court, which has never found Israel to have committed genocide, despite what all the loonies say about Israel. And anyway, she posted on X this morning that I think she lives in London or the London area, but that this attack on the synagogue on Yom Kippur in Manchester was particularly difficult for her because last October 7th, she went to that synagogue to speak about the issues involving Hamas and the international legal situation regarding Israel and how everything's been weaponized against Israel. So it hit home for her because a year ago, she was at that seminar at the same time. So that's difficult. It's hard to articulate how I feel about this and how angry it makes me feel.
You know, there's something that I would like to circle back on for just a moment, getting back to the meeting that took place this week with Benjamin Netanyahu and Trump. And, you know, we can talk about Trump playing 4D chess. I do believe he does this a lot. He is all about the art of the deal. And, you know, someone could actually say, perhaps, that Trump and Netanyahu knew that this thing would fail from the get-go. Okay, let's face it. Hamas doesn't make deals. All right, they don't make deals. We already know their mindset in these things. Why would they play into something that? Yeah, I mean, there's something perhaps that was in that for everybody, but ultimately, I mean, I don't think any of us really thought that the thing would really go through. Could it be that this was intentionally set up in such a way as to get many of these Islamic nations on board, Israel, the United States, etc., intentionally set up, knowing that Hamas would turn this whole thing down to give the final excuse to Israel to actually finish the job, as, again, Gaza City is almost completely encircled as we speak right now. Could this have been preparation for that very thing? What are your thoughts?
I think that's a possibility from my from what I can understand. But I think that probably looking at Trump, I was mentioning that to John the other day. Trump is probably somewhat blinded by his desire to get the Nobel Peace Prize for peace in the Middle East, and he's the closest that any U.S. president has ever been. Okay, let's be honest. But I think that I don't know if his a desire to to bring peace, to end the war with Hamas, is because of the hostages and because of the terrible situation that they're in right now, or if because he's thinking, if I do that, this is going to be a launching pad for more of the Abraham Accords, which I personally don't really feel comfortable with anyway, to start with. What do you think, John? Do you think it's connected?
Look, I think that I'm not sure exactly how to not go down a complete different trail. I do not look at this and think that anybody who's doing this is playing 4D chess. They're either they have some other agenda, or they're completely blinded by the big shiny object of a Nobel Peace Prize or something like that. I'm sorry, I'm not very impressed with it. I'm looking at all the things that are going on. And as some of us have talked about this, it is very clear that behind this peace plan is Jared Kushner,
Right.
this Gaza plan. And Olivier, you and I have been exchanging some PowerPoints that have been floating around over the past year about this plan, how it was going to unfold, the pictures, the AI generated pictures of this, big, beautiful Gaza that looks kind of like Dubai on the Mediterranean. That's the plan. That's going to take a while to build. But then there are some language within that 20 points that cause me concern. And by the way, I have a friend who's worked with me on this, and she has unpacked sort of the interconnectedness of this Gaza plan to the Abraham Accords and to things like the New York Declaration, which we all agree is a complete, total fraud and disaster. The New York Declaration, adopted a couple months ago by, I don't know, it was the Islamic countries and France or whoever. It's kind of hard to tell them. Well, maybe they're all Islamic countries by now. But I'm not impressed with the whole situation. It's clear that Jared Kushner is behind this. And then here along they come, and who are they going to trot out to be the governor of Gaza during this interim period, assuming Hamas had accepted the deal, is Tony Blair. I mean, how many times do we have to go down the road with Tony Blair before we say enough is enough? There was a big article on The Spectator, a couple articles during the first Trump administration. There was an article on the Spectator magazine that said they called Jared Kushner the Prince, which is kind of an interesting name. And then there was a follow-up article using the same graphic recently that said Jared Kushner is still very much involved in the White House. He's not on the official list anywhere, but that Jared Kushner had enough power at the White House that he could Bigfoot anybody in the White House if they crossed paths with him the wrong way. I layer on top of that, the Trump business doing a deal with Qatar to develop a big luxury resort in Doha or the Doha area. I think that Steve Witkoff's sons, or a son of Steve Witkoff, who's Trump's main envoy to the Middle East, who had his hotel bought out by Qatar, to the tune of almost $700 million when he was having some issues with it. And his sons are now involved in business deals with Qatar. It's coming out. So I don't like the look of it. And here's my final response to, is this 4D chess? Somebody who's playing 4D chess does not out of the blue issue, as was issued on Monday, a presidential order, presidential action titled Assuring the Security of the State of Qatar.
Right.
It's very similar to the provisions of Article 5 of NATO. So, that if Qatar is attacked, we're going to step in. And by the way, I didn't listen to Mega Media today at all, but when we intervened, the United States intervened on behalf of Israel in their 12-day war with Iran to take out the nuclear facilities with our big bunker busters and our B-2 bombers. MAGA media was going completely ballistic about that attack because we were getting involved on behalf of Israel. We were going to war. I mean, you heard Tucker, you heard Steve Bannon. They're going to shed the precious blood of our young soldiers in the Middle East, and they're going to get us yet involved in another war. And that none of that happened, but it didn't make any difference. I've not heard anything from Mega Media this morning about, or over the last 2 days, about this presidential order issued on Monday about assuring the security of the state of Qatar. And by the way, there is no similar agreement or order with regard to Israel. Process that. So I'm just going to tell you, I'm not impressed. And as my friend who's been helping me go through this, if you take the New York Declaration language, which is awful, it's terrible, it's pathetic, you can see connections to that, to the Gaza, the 20-point plan or 21-point plan that the Trump administration put out and said, this is the deal. And it was like, you got to do this in 24 hours. Now it's like 48 to 72 hours. And so I'm just telling you, I've been following this a long time. I've seen these deals come and go over the last 30 some years. None of them work. And so I would say, look, Israel, go finish the job. Finish what you need to do in Gaza.
Yeah, the problem with that is that finishing the job properly is going to most likely require losing some of the hostages. And which I don't think Bibi has at this point. It's going to be damn if you do, damn if you don't. I would love your opinion on that. I mean, not to hijack the show here. I'm asking the questions. I'm just a guest. I'm sorry.
No. Go for it. We're all contributing.
But John, I'd be curious to get your opinion on this. Do you think that when this is over, when Hamas is gone, and do you think that is Bibi going to be asked to resign, or is he going to be going on trial, or is he going to be have to answer for some of the mistakes that were made? And I'm not putting the blame on anybody, but what people have been saying. What do you think is going to happen to Bibi?
Well, I was out and about a little bit this morning, so I was listening to some old programs. One was a interview that was done, I can't remember who did it, of Yaakov Katz, who still may be the editor-in-chief of the Jerusalem Post, talking about what happened. How did we miss this on October 7th? And then also another interview with a very intelligent guy, and you should follow his Israel updates that he does with Michael Duran from the Hudson Institute. That's Gadi Taub. And Gadi was talking about the fact that we ignored Israel, the desire for peace and security had really affected the Israeli security apparatus, so that in Lebanon, they knew when Nasrallah sneezed or went to the bathroom. In Gaza, they did not know that. They really had no intelligence assets on the ground. And so I hear the anti-Israel crowd, even in the Christian community, oh, well, we're just asking questions. They must have let this intentionally happen on October 7th. I will tell you, I have asked a lot of people about that in Israel, a lot of security people, former IDF people, and not a single person in Israel believes that garbage. And they will respond to me with very descriptive language of what they think of that idea. So yes, it was missed. And everybody says, well, it took them 6 hours to respond. When somebody attacks you in a war, right, it takes time to gather your forces and respond. There weren't massive bases down there along the border. There were small bases that had barracks in which soldiers slept. And anybody who thinks that they're a base like Fort Hood or
Pendleton,
Pendleton or something like that. You do not understand. I've been down there. They are small bases with dormitories where some soldiers slept. And then it was the holidays. Listen, they missed it. Okay. We get that. And there have been some reports come out, and the people and some of the security apparatus have said we were wrong. And some have resigned, I believe, over it. Now, the question is, what did Netanyahu do? But I'm going to go back. Why don't people think of like recent historical examples of what has happened in these situations? Remember, Iraq invaded Kuwait. That was bad. That was a big deal because of the world oil supply being dependent on free flow of oil from the Middle East.
Right.
So then the decision was made to invade Iraq. The United States at that time, and may still be, the most logistically sophisticated and able to respond military in human history. How long did it take from the time that Saddam Hussein and Iraq invaded Kuwait till the first Iraq war started? It was at least 6 months. So please, people, spare me the criticism that, it took 6 hours for them to respond when they were brutally attacked on October 7th. You just don't throw soldiers in there without a plan.
Right.
Okay, so listen, they missed it. We get that. But this notion, I think, that it was intentional is, well, I'm going to say it. I think that the way that question is framed to me a lot is people showing, I hate the term anti-Semitism too, by the way, Jew hatred bubbling up in their heart.
Absolutely.
And it annoys me greatly. And I assume, I get these questions all the time. You just don't ask, you just support everything I do. I don't support everything Israel does. I never have supported everything that the government does. And by the way, people in Israel don't support everything that the government does. It's not a monolithic society. And if you think that it is, you've never been there. I've been to the Knesset, and I've seen very open arguments in front of me, who's a complete stranger. You know what I mean? It's rough and tumble politics over there with a lot of competing interests. So look, people missed it. I've always asked the question. Nobody's ever answered it. And I asked somebody the other day who thought they were being very clever about asking about, the lack of response on October 7th. And I said, okay, so let's say you're sitting in the Israeli security apparatus and you know what Hamas is planning. You've looked at the intel and it's October 6th and you know something is coming. What do you do? And of course, then they say, we should talk about what. No. You're so smart. Tell me what they should have done before the attack on October 7th. And the reason I'm asking that question is, if Israel had done, we know that what Israel needed to do was at least what Israel has done thus far. And can you imagine the world reaction if they had done that without 250 hostages and 1,200 dead people?
But don't you think that Israel, to an extent, knew what they were getting into in 2005 when they walked away from Gaza and gave it to the Palestinian Authority?
You would think.
Well, look, I agree, and they should have got a clue when the Gazans went in there to highly sophisticated greenhouses and that type of thing and destroyed everything because it had been built by Jews. Right. And we need to remember back in 2005, every Jew, living and dead, that they knew where they were buried was taken out of Gaza, ripped out, literally dug up and ripped out of Gaza. Gaza became completely Jew-free. So yeah, and then there were all the rocket attacks over the years, and I think Caroline Glick referred to it commonly as every now and then we have to mow the lawn in Gaza. to tamp this down. So the situation was always there. I and I think that there was a it's like when we see the things that happened back in 2020 with Charlie Vector, you know, we saw what was happening, and now we look back. I look back at some videos that people took of family gatherings where everybody's wearing the face diaper, and it looks so strange. But then it was like the default thing is normalcy bias. You know, we want to think everything is normal, and we're not really seeing what we're seeing. And so I think that was true. And I really think that the Israeli apparatus, security apparatus, political apparatus thought we can manage this problem. If we just give them money and opportunity, they'll build Dubai on the Mediterranean and everything will be fine.
The problem is that the religious ideology that they have in Islam, the religious ideology is far greater than money, than wealth, than any of those things. And I mean, if Israel would just look at historically, but they haven't learned from history. That's the reason why they're in the place that they're in today, is because they haven't learned from history. If they would have learned from history, then they wouldn't be in the place that they're in today. But we also know that Joshua never fully conquered the land. He's never taken all of the land, right? And so then when you've got Israel that does have, or did have, the Gaza Strip area, and they're thinking to themselves, hey, listen, they're going to be reasonable people in the modern age if we just give them the opportunity to have all this wealth, to have the things that we have, to live, like the Western world, that they'll come around and they'll see, hey, this is what's going to work, this is what's good for us. And look what happened, right? Now we've got a situation with Judea and Samaria, right? Trump is saying, he's telling Netanyahu, no annexation of Judea and Samaria, like Trump has any right to make such a statement like that. I think that's just absolutely ridiculous for the President of the United States to say to our greatest ally in the Middle East, an ally of the United States, to tell them what they can and can't do with the land that was given to them. So I want to ask Olivier here, what are your thoughts about that statement that he made, A, and B, about the statement that he made with Qatar when we were watching that televised situation there on Monday, when he's talking the praises of Qatar. Qatar is wonderful. Qatar is a terrorist state. What's he talking about? So, A and B, what are your thoughts on that?
Okay, well, actually, it's in my mind, the way I understand it is that Trump is a businessman. That's good and that's bad. It's good because we've seen that, he's been a very successful businessman in many ways, and not being a politician in the way that we've known for decades, he cannot really be bought. But being a businessman, I think he's looking at every move he's making in the world as a business deal. And he's not thinking, not that he has to go through, what's the word I'm looking for? Diplomacy. Not that you have to go through diplomacy and give a lot to get a little bit, but not everything is a business deal. So when you made a statement like, I will never agree, or I will never let Israel annex Judea, Samaria. Well, I'm sorry, Trump, you're wrong. That is I can't agree with that. Right. I voted for him. Okay, I voted for him. Because I think he's promised and delivered a lot of goods in his first term, and in his second term, and it's only been 7-8 months. So I have no regrets voting for him. When he's telling a sovereign state that they cannot do something specific with land that is their own, he's out of his mind, and he's thinking like a business person when he should be thinking differently. I think it's the same with Qatar. And Qatar, there might be, and I don't know how much money is involved in that. I mean, does he still have that plane that Qatar gifted him?
Sure.
Sorry?
I haven't heard anything
Yeah.
about that actually since then.
No, it's been delivered.
Okay.
So I think it was $800 million plane.
Right.
I think it's going to replace the Air Force One that we have. I don't know. So, I mean, the one fundamental thing I think we need to remember is that whatever the 20-point plan is, okay, it's not even at the level of the complete turnover of Gaza, which happened back in 2005, which has turned into an absolute unmitigated disaster. So yesterday, Barry Weiss was doing an interview. She used to be at the New York Times. She has a thing called the Free Press, and her podcast is called Honestly. And we can criticize her for her lifestyle and, that type of thing. But she's a good thinker. And so she had a guy on yesterday named Leland Vitert, who is a journalist. And he went to Gaza to do a story, and he was sharing the story. And the story was of this lady in Gaza, who, when she was 5 or 6 years old, had accidentally poured boiling water over herself and had very severe burns. She was taken from Israel to Gaza, nursed back to health, educated, went back to Gaza, had a work permit, came across all the time. And then a number of years ago, she came across the border with a suicide bomb vest on. And she had 3 targets in mind. And it was a police station, a school, or the hospital that had treated her. She tried to blow herself up, or the bomb malfunctioned. They got her, or I think they shot her. And so she had to go to the hospital again to be treated and fixed up and nursed back to health. And she got a college degree in Israel. And she went back to Gaza. So this guy goes to interview her because he says, my goal when I interviewed this lady was I thought we were going to finally have a lady who's seen the error of her ways, and she's going to be an advocate for peace with Israel. So he showed her the video of when her suicide bombing thing went wrong and she was injured. And he said, what do you think? And she said, oh, if I had succeeded, I would have entered paradise. And he said, but you don't want it. I dream of doing this every day and will until the day I die. I dream of killing Jews.
I have stories from people we've been working with since October 7th in the IDF who said that they actually rescued people from Gaza, pulled them out, Palestinians, Arabs, pulled them out, fixed them up. And the first thing that the person would say when they were able to talk and get back on their feet is, I want to kill me some Jew.
Yeah.
So
Olivia, I agree with you. I mean, the stories of this there's piles of stories like this. And so I don't understand how we're doing this over again. Like it's going to change.
Yeah, Kurt alluded to it a little earlier in the show. We are dealing with 2 completely different ideologies. Right. As long as we do it that way, we will make no progress. We'll get incremental progress, a little Band-Aid here, a little Band-Aid there, but we will not cure the cancer.
Right. You have to understand the
within
mindset
the church
of Islam. You've got to understand their mindset. And money I shouldn't say that money doesn't talk in Islam, but money is not the primary consideration in Islam. And so as long as Bibi or Trump approaches these things in the manner in which they're approaching them, then Israel is always going to come out the loser in this whole matter. Somebody had put on here, I think it might have been Pookie a little bit ago. Is Trump part of the deep state? Was his question. Now, why? I think he's trying to say, is Trump actually deep down inside more a part of these things than people realize? Why is he saying the things that he's saying? Why is there this 20-point plan? Why is there statements that he's making on Qatar or guaranteeing, almost like a NATO kind of a protection, over Qatar? Why is he saying, hey, Qatar is the most wonderful thing since chocolate pudding? Why is he coming against Israel and saying, no, you're not going to annex Judea and Samaria? I think that they're good and legitimate questions.
Well, I agree, but the fundamental problem is that too many people in our government, and I would include the president within this group, and Jared Kushner within this group, and Steve Witkoff within this group, and certainly, with no doubt in my mind, Tony Blair within this group. They do not understand the fundamental nature of Islam. And I'll use 3 examples from Tucker Carlson recently. And I can think of 2 of them, and I'm probably going to forget the one. But he's talking about, for example, he says, well, people don't want Sharia law. Sharia law, I mean, look at, you won't get raped walking down the street in Qatar. So it should, he gets that little schoolgirl squeaky voice. Then he says, so what's wrong with Sharia law? Then he says, like 2 weeks ago, well, is Hamas really a terror organization? It's really kind of a social political organization.
They're a political party, yeah.
Yeah.
and then the other day, there was a clip of him. By the way, he's like a gold mine for people who want to, if you can stand to mine all the ridiculous thing he says. But then he said, well, Islam means submission. And isn't submission to God the point of religion? And what's wrong with being submission to God? It's submission to Allah, Tucker. The God of the Bible that you claim to believe in is not the Allah of the Quran.
Different gods.
The God of the Quran is a demon. So you're advocating submission to a demon. You have lost your ability to think and reason through this issue. So I don't have much hope that issue is going to be changed.
Right. Well, look at the statements that he made at Charlie Kirk's memorial service.
Yeah.
Look, I suppose if you took that little slice out and that was the only thing he'd ever said, you could probably talk around it. But we're talking like a whole piece, like Tucker Carlson is not one little statement at Charlie Kirk's funeral, which I thought was really inappropriate thing to bring up.
Exceedingly inappropriate.
Especially as
on
laughter.
many levels.
Yeah.
So, and then, but there's a whole history there. And, it goes back to him interviewing Munther Isaac. That was March or April of 2024. And I did, Dumasani Washington wrote for JNS or for the Tablet magazine on that. And I interviewed him, and then he did a panel the other day for Genesis 123 Foundation. And people don't understand, and maybe it's normalcy bias, so I never get the benefit of the doubt like he does. It's kind of annoying in that sense, because everybody wants to mischaracterize what I believe or what I say. But so I just think that in the Bible prophecy scope, maybe we need to move on to that. this board of peace, and Trump's going to be chairman of the board and that type of thing. And I have a couple comments for that. But I think this is a very, everybody wants to say, is this the Daniel 9 covenant? I don't think it is, but I think it's certainly building up to it.
No.
Even if it's not accepted by Hamas.
Well, and I like your thoughts on this, exactly what John is saying here, Olivier, because when he's talking and others are talking about him being the chairman of the board of peace, I mean, that just has Daniel 9:27 kind of I don't know, echoes or whatever you want to call it. And by the way, I'm not saying that he's that guy. I don't believe that Trump is or could be, for a number of reasons. But what I do believe, a lot of the things that we're seeing in the world today and have been, is that, like I like to say, the stage is being set. I believe the global sickness of a few years ago was one way of setting the stage for people to say, hey, unless you get this thing right here, you're not going to be able to work a job, see grandma in the hospital, or whatever it might be. It was preparatory. I think statements like this or a 20-point plan are preparatory. What are your thoughts, Olivier?
I would even go further back. I think that the first time I started to see the stage being set, in a sense that the whole world was reacting in a certain way, was, and again, I'm obviously not saying that he is the Antichrist, but when Obama came into power, I remember watching this pretty unknown person come to power and become this global phenomenon,
right,
where everybody thought he was the best person in the world, and anything and you could say or do anything, the whole world would just like be just thought it was the most wonderful person. And here's this guy that nobody knew, and all of a sudden he's coming. He's very, in a non-Christian terminology, is very charismatic, very relatable, and people are believing him. They're trusting him. They're following him. They're buying everything he has to sell. And I was telling my wife at the time, I said, look at this. Here's a guy who's like completely unknown. He's coming on the scene, and the whole world is going like, I can go with that guy. So I thought this is a good dry run for when the Antichrist comes on the scene. When he's going to come, nobody's going to necessarily know who he is. And boom, people are going to go like, I like this guy. What he has to offer is exactly what we need. There's that. And then there is what you mentioned, and I like the way you say it, the global sickness. I like that. This probably will keep you on YouTube.
Yeah, they've taken me down a number of times because they didn't like things I say. So,
yes, and so that also showed us how quickly the world can become a bunch of sheep just going into one direction and not asking any questions. And so the stage is being set. We're looking at this, more and more of a globalization of the planet. With even with global currency coming, and of course people are always asking, what's the mark of the beast? Should we be scared? Well, the mark of the beast is a real thing. It's coming, but it's only going to affect people, I believe, during the tribulation, and it's going to be taken by people who want to take it. It's not going to be forced onto people. And from what I understand from the Greek, it's going to be something on the skin, not under, it's going to be printed. So it could be a tattoo, it could be a branding, it could be something that you affix to this, but it's going to be on the skin, and it won't have any effect until the middle of the tribulation. So, but all those things are coming, and do we have the technology for the mark of from the mark of the beast? Let me think about it. Of course we do. We probably have a lot.
Should have listened to the tech roundtable last night.
Well, please add to this. What do you have to say?
We'll definitely need to.
The answer is yes. I'm not trying to tell people to go watch it, but you should. And like you do on Kurt's videos and Olivier's, like, share, subscribe, and all that usual thing to help out the algorithm thing that we're in, a morass or whatever you would call it. But I really think that the push for peace on so many levels, and so if you look through the 20-point plan, there is one point in that 20-point plan that talks about an interfaith. I'd have to pull up the plan exactly to get it, but it talks about interfaith dialogue.
Right.
Well, what does that mean? And it's just kind of thrown in there like, well, everybody's going to do that. And I'm just telling you, I'm not for that. I'm sorry. I don't want that. I can see where it leads. You see the billboards that Abraham Shield, that's an organization in Israel, abrahamshield.org, put up. And it's interesting. And I think in these Bible prophecy issues, Mark of the Beast, Daniel 9 covenant, all these things that I'm sort of thinking about them in terms of meeting a threshold that at some point we'll be able to say this is that which was prophesied. And so I'm watching to see how close they're getting to that threshold line on many, many issues. And I think some of them are very, very close. And so then the question becomes is like, how do we make that pronouncement without looking like a bunch of nuts or totally uninformed people? So this is just sort of how I'm thinking through all the issues. But when I look at those posters, I'm just saying there's Trump and Bibi in the middle.
Yeah.
And then the Hebrew translation, at least one of them says a time for war, a time for settlement, or something like that. And then the big phrase below is moving toward a new Abrahamic covenant. Now, wait a minute. Why did they choose those terminology
on purpose
to talk about this? Oh, and by the way, how many other leaders are in the picture with Trump and Bibi? And the answer is 10. 10 kings. Now, again, I'm not saying this is that, but Trump has a chairman of the board of peace, a board of peace in this, and in the Saudi Post, somebody, my friend who's been researching this very well, she was able to pull this off the internet from the Saudi Post, posted yesterday. It is a quote from the chairman of the Pakistan Ulema Council, Sheikh Tahir Ashfar Rafi. So it's a Sunni council in Pakistan. He looked at this Trump plan, okay, and what was going on and what was behind it. And this is what he said. This is the translation. I want you to listen to this. Under the current circumstances, we affirm that we are one united nation, cohesive, trusting in the wisdom of the Saudi leadership and supporting the efforts of the Prince of Peace, Mohammed bin Salman, for the two-state solution, and we support Saudi Arabia's efforts as the beating heart of the nation. And then around the time of this 20-point plan being out there, there's pictures appearing on Saudi social media of Mohammed bin Salman sitting or standing, they're photoshopped or AI, on the Temple Mount with the Dome of the Rock in the background. I'm just saying is all of this stuff is evidence of things that we need to be paying very close attention to.
The article that you were of the 20 plan, the one that you were referring to, I just found it from the text. It says interfaith dialogue initiatives and U.S.-led political talks will explore a pathway to Palestinian self-determination and statehood.
You know, John, you had brought up something that in that whole plan. So what is this? There is a desire to try and bring about peace in that area, in the region involving Israel. And you had mentioned, as you said, interfaith dialogue was injected into that equation. Guys, look, again, I look at these things as preparatory interfaith dialogue. Well, isn't that exactly what you see when you're looking at Revelation chapter 13 and the false prophet, right? Wouldn't you call that or consider that interfaith coming together, right? The world's religions. You've got the world that'll be coming together politically, if you would. You see it economically by it being enforced there. And you see religiously or interfaith or whatever you want to call it as well. Again, we see all of these kinds of tropes that are involved in something like what we're seeing this week, okay? Again, I am definitely not saying, nor do I believe for a moment that this is that. But again, it's just starting the conversation or continuing the conversation in a manner that when it actually is time for Daniel chapter 9, 27, other parts of the word that we read about to actually take place, the world will be so prepped for it. I believe the world is going to be so conditioned in their mind because they've been being prepped for so many years. And that is what I find really quite significant about all of these things. By the way, we're going to get to some Q&A and some statements, by the way, for those that have some statements to put out there. So we're going to get right on to this here. And here's a question that I want to ask the people that are watching today. What do you think? Do you think that Israel should go in, like we're talking about? Do you think that Israel should actually go in and finish the job in Gaza? I want to ask our audience that question. What are your thoughts? Let's get some statements from some of you folks on some of these things. What are your thoughts on the things that we've been discussing today? So first off, let's start with this one right here. We've got first one from Blessed, a.k.a. Dora. Question, what do you think Atlas really is? Okay. Who wants it? Do you know what Atlas is, Olivier?
I'm
No? Okay.
not sure what this being referred to. No.
Okay, and so Atlas, I think it's called 31 Atlas or something.
Oh, this is the
It's talking about the
thing
big comet,
floating around out there in
right?
space.
Making its way a pretty straight line until it gets close to the sun, and then it kind of adjusts a little bit right there from gravitational pulls and things like that, making its way into, so it's an interstellar object coming into our solar system, which from what we've observed in modern times is a pretty rare occurrence, and there's all kinds of things that are being said about that. Did you have anything that you wanted to share about that, John? People are saying all kinds of crazy things.
Well, I've looked at it. I have to confess that I'm not particularly up on all of the things. I do know that talking to Pete Garcia after the roundtable last night, there are a lot of earth changes that are underway right now that don't get discussed. There's solar activity that affect the atmosphere and a lot of other things. And it just seems that this is another thing that's converging at this time. And it could have some pretty severe impacts on things.
Yeah, I don't have any information on Atlas, but I can tell you something with certainty. If this Atlas thing turns out to have any negative impact or negative effect on the planet, at some point, sooner than later, the Jews will be blamed for it.
Right. No kidding.
Well, because you have space lasers.
I agree
lasers that could shoot it down.
I agree with you, Olivier. I've been saying for a while. Listen, if an asteroid hits the moon, somehow, and it'll probably be Tucker or who knows who, I don't know. And they will blame the Jews somehow that they knew it was going to happen and didn't try and blow it up out there before it happened. I agree 100%. I'll tell you my thoughts on the whole Atlas thing. First of all, it's not some interstellar alien that's making its way through here or anything like that whatsoever. I think they're making a whole bunch of hullabaloo. It's not going to come anywhere near Earth. It is absolutely 100% zero threat to planet Earth. And my personal opinion is I consider it a nunion. So that's my take on it. I guess history will show us if what I just said was true. But that's my personal opinion. But a lot of people are talking about that, Dora. So thank you for your question. Question right here is from Arrow Whisper. If you were president for a year, what would be your plan to fix the situation? Let's start first with Olivier.
Well, I've never had to think about that one. If I was president of the U.S. for a year?
Yes, if you were president for a year, what would, well, I'm assuming the U.S., maybe they're meaning Netanyahu, I don't know, but let's assume either one. If you were president for a year, what would be your plan to fix this situation as exists right now?
Well, first of all, they wouldn't let me because I'm from France and I would never be able to be elected president. So that's, that's for there. That's so, so for once, let's not blame the Jews. Let's blame the French. But that's kind of an odd question. First of all, anybody who's going to be president of the U.S. would have to understand that there's not a whole lot you can do in a year. For me, I really have to think about that one. But for me, I would have to try to run everything that I'm doing. Everything that I'm working on would have to pass through a biblical lens. So if we're dealing with that's not really the case in America currently, and frankly, we did not vote for a pastor, we voted for a leader. But for me, as a Christian, as a believer, as a follower of Yeshua, Jesus, I would have to make sure that the decision I make as a president would allow me to sleep as a Christian at night. That's the best I can tell you without really putting more thoughts into it. What about you, President Haller?
I would do, I think what needs to be done is go in and finish the job. It's war, don't like it, but Hamas needs to be eradicated. None of this, you can have amnesty and still stay, lay down your weapons and still stay in Gaza.
I didn't know if it was president of the U.S. or prime minister of Israel in the question, so I was assuming it was.
Well, then I would support Israel in finishing the job.
I would too. I would
support Israel in finishing the job. I would encourage her in finishing the job, because every day that goes by that Israel does not finish the job, it increases the power of her adversaries, okay? Listen, all of her adversaries know Israel's policy on hostages. This is the reason why they take hostages. And by the way, for some that may not know this, whether those hostages are alive or dead, okay, what Israel's policy is regarding these things. And as a result, it puts power in the hands of Israel's enemies, okay? There is a reason why when you're reading, for an example, in the earlier chapters in the book of Deuteronomy, okay, why God says to go in and utterly destroy. Okay, we're not going to get off into all of the nuances of that today, but listen, there is a time when by not going in and utterly destroying, you're costing more lives. Okay, this is exasperating the situation for the people, just the regular citizens, if we want to call it, those that call themselves, I like to word it that way, those that call themselves Palestinians. Okay, well listen, it is exasperating the problem for the people there. It is allowing for more and more and more IDF to die on a daily basis, all right? And all it's doing is it is feeding into future conflicts with Israel's surrounding neighbors slash enemies because they know what they have to do in order to win in the world press against Israel. So if Israel would just go in and deal with, just like you're saying, John, deal with it and just get her done. I believe that's what needs to happen. So
I agree with you, Kurt. I just want to add something to what you said about Deuteronomy because I think it's very important for your audience to understand this. We are often, us, the Christian Zionists, the supporters of Israel, we're often accused of, like where you're supporting genocide, you're supporting occupation, you're supporting land grab, and all this terminology that none of the people accusing us of would be able to define properly. But that's another, another issue. But the difference, the big difference between Islam and what's happening in Israel with the Jewish people, with Judaism, you could say, is that when God told the Israelites, the children of Israel, to go and kill everybody and grab the land and just cleanse the land of all the idol worshippers, this was historical. This was for that time. It had to happen for a specific time, for specific boundaries.
Of course.
When Islam is not looking at it the same way. Islam is looking at it as being normative. It is the ongoing thing. Go get the land, get more, get more, get more. They won't be satisfied until they have an entire planet that will turn into a caliphate. In Israel, the land was given with specific boundaries, which is not even close to what we'll have in the Millennial Kingdom. But not only that, God even warned the Israelites that if they take more than he was given them, they would be punished. And a good example is in Deuteronomy 2:5. I'll start 2:1 through 5. Then we turned and set out to the wilderness by the way of the Red Sea, as Yahweh spoke to me, and circled Mount Seir for many days. And Yahweh spoke to me, saying, "You have circled this mountain long enough. Now turn north and command the people, saying, You're going to pass through the territory of your brothers, the sons of Esau, who live in Seir. And they will be afraid of you, so be very careful." And here's verse 5, super important. "Do not provoke them, for I will not give you any of their land, even as little as a footstep, because I've given Mount Seir to Esau as a possession." So here we have God telling Israel, I've given you land, I've given you boundaries. Push the people out, kill the people, take the land. This is my decree. This is the biblical mandate, the biblical decree that I've given. But don't take another inch, because that's not yours.
Right. And yes, and thank you for sharing that, those specific verses. And listen, the problem that exists today with Gaza is because, well, it goes all the way back to then, okay? But not only that, but just in modern days, in modern time, the problem exists because not only does Israel refuse to deal with the situation, but look what Israel did. They gave, let's talk about this, they gave land for peace. They gave them that area, prime land. They gave them. And did it bring peace? No, it brought death, it brought war, it brought destruction. And what it has brought for Israel on the global scene is worse right now than it would have been if Israel just would have held on to what they had when they had Gaza. But because Israel fails to go in and to keep what they have, to finish the job, look at the situation that they have today.
Absolutely. And when you look at this global agreement to declare the state of Palestine as a bona fide, state that we've seen in the last few weeks from France and Canada and Australia and the UK, and I'm just naming a few. When you see this thing, people of good faith, of goodwill, should look and say, wait. Before we make a declaration like this, in 2005, Israel gave Gaza back to the Palestinians. We have a 20-year case study to look at. Let's look at how it worked for Israel to give away land for peace. And let's make our decision on facts, on history, on geopolitical situations. And then anybody in their right mind would say, yeah, we just can't do that because look, they had a chance. They destroyed it. They built hundreds of miles of tunnels, killed people, continue to want to kill people. So no, we're not going to declare Palestine. It's just not right. Except that this is a spiritual battle. The enemy, Satan, is behind it, and he wants to push the Jews to complete destruction because that's the only way he's going to survive.
Absolutely. So, guys, let's move on with the next one because we got a few more here. I want to make sure that we can get to here in the next 14, 15 minutes here. Beauty for Ashes put on question: do you think we will be we will be raptured before World War III? Let's give this one here to Mr. Holler.
I think if you ask Vladimir Putin about World War III, he would say, well, we already had that. We're in World War IV. That's kind of a cheap dodge to the answer. So the answer is, I don't know. I don't expect it. The way any of this unfolds is sort of still unknown in terms of specific timing. Right now, I would say if Jesus doesn't return pretty soon, yeah, we're going to be here. Because I just see the trajectory going that direction.
I would also say, so, what is meant by World War III? Do you mean by World War III, are you talking about, the battle of there in Megiddo, or are you talking about something before that, and even before the tribulation? We don't know if there's going to be a World War III before the tribulation, if that's where the question is going, or not. We may not. But if there is a World War III, let's say, before the tribulation, there's nothing in Scripture that indicates by any way, shape, or means that we would have to be gone before a situation like that takes place. We're kept from God's wrath during the time of the tribulation, and the very beginning of God's wrath is the unveiling of the Antichrist, by the way. So it's the entirety of the tribulation there. So, okay, question number 3. Vin Dog, my cousin Vinny, I like to call you. Question: do you believe that people should be keeping their eyes on the Vatican Mafia, aka the Catholic Church, because Europe looks weak right now, but that Roman Empire could arise? Let's.
Well, I was it for me or for
Go for
John?
it. I'm just gonna go back and forth.
I'm gonna be very short, and then I'll let John be very long. I believe that the Antichrist, excuse me, that the Antichrist will be coming from a revived Roman Empire. So I always keep an eye on the Vatican and the Roman Catholic Church. I don't believe that the Antichrist will be a Muslim. I don't believe that the Antichrist, like some people believe, will be a Jew. Leave the Jews alone. We've done everything else against you guys. Do we also have to bring you the Antichrist? Come on, give us that one. Give us that one, okay?
That's good.
Give us a pass on that one.
Yeah. So I'm sort of open to a lot of different possibilities on this. I will note, I think I just said something to Kurt before we started about an interview that Pope Leo gave the other day, maybe yesterday, in which he said, well, if you're against abortion, strongly against abortion, but you still support the death penalty, you're not pro-life. If you're against illegal immigration, you're not pro-life. I mean, I think it was sort of a, hate to use the term with regard to the Vatican, about crossing the Rubicon or crossing the Tiber River. This was a very big moment, that what happened yesterday. And I will tell you, I've been watching some Catholics respond to this, and they are hopping mad. So if we think that there's been any kind of a shift from Francis to Leo, he blew it up yesterday. No change.
Well, people thought there was a shift, but
Well, yeah, we all want it to be better, but you know, I want New York strip steak every night or brisket. I don't get that. You know.
yeah, but at the end of the day, the Pope is a man. He's a sinner just like all of us. And he doesn't have a special access to God just by virtue of being
Sure.
the Pope. So I mean, I not that I don't respect him as a person, but I don't want to offend anybody Catholic watching right now. But at the end of the day, the Pope needs his sins to be forgiven by God through the blood of Yeshua, through the blood of Jesus shed on the cross, the exact same way that mine were forgiven, your John and your Pastor Kurt.
You know, in the wording of the question from Vinny, it's kind of indicating, could this Pope, a Pope, Catholic Church, kind of head that coalition, so to speak, or be perhaps even the Antichrist. And personally, I do not believe so. I think, if anything, a Pope would be involved on the religious end of things, kind of stay in his lane, perhaps as the false prophet. Again, I have no idea. I don't know.
See, I don't think that the world religion that the Antichrist is going to introduce is going to be Catholicism. I think it's going to be a world religion that will be a hybrid of all religions. It will be a mix of Judaism, Islam, and Christianity in a way that people are going to go like, wow, this is really what we need. But you're not going to be able to push Catholicism on Muslims or Jews. You're not going to be able to push Judaism on Muslims, or any way you look at it. So I think that the Antichrist will come from the revived Roman Empire, yes, because we have good reasons to believe that from Scripture, from Daniel. But it does not mean, I don't think it means that he's going to push a new version of Catholicism onto the world. Do you have any thoughts on that, John?
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how this religious system develops. And again, it's one of those threshold things. First of all, what it's going to be, what it's going to look like, and then when does it rise to the threshold that somebody can say, yeah, this is what the prophets were talking about. So
right.
I don't think we're there yet.
No.
I don't see it. There's. For example, Dave Hunt wrote a book about A Woman Rides the Beast, and that is sort of driving a lot of how people view these times. It was a great book, by the way, and
30 years ago.
Yeah, I actually read it. I was reading it while I was on my first trip to Israel 30 years ago.
I read it too.
A lot of things have changed.
Yeah, and so I'm not sure that that's how this final world religion goes. And then you have all the tech bros and the technology and stuff layered on top of that. So I'm just not sure that this is it. Yeah.
Right. So J. Arzuno said, question, when will Isaiah 17 happen? Yeah, you know what I'm going to say? Has anyone ever watched, back in the day, Johnny Carson? Remember Johnny Carson, right? Yeah, I used to watch Johnny Carson back in the day, right? Remember when he would do, Karnak the Magnificent, right? Karnak the Magnificent. So let me see here. Karnak the Magnificent says, yes. I have no idea. I had to throw that in there. Sorry, guys.
My favorite one all the time was Sis Boom Ba. And he says, what's the sound that a sheep makes when it explodes?
Funny stuff.
So I think that, so I would just say this. So within our community, there's a divergence of opinion on Isaiah 17.
And we're not even all Jewish. Three Jews, five opinions.
Right. And if you spend time talking to everybody, you'll find out nobody agrees on anything, pretty much. But so some say it was fulfilled, and it was the kingdom of Aram or whatever it was. And I would just say I'm not so sure, because There's other prophecies in that Isaiah 1 through 17 passage that were fulfilled at the birth of Jesus. Why do you say that it's all been fulfilled? And I think so. I don't agree with that position. And I would just say, if Isaiah 17 is still a future prophecy, it would seem to indicate a world in which there was conflict and tension between Israel and Syria. And the question is that existing in the world today? And the answer is, yeah, big time.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's
so
right.
Miss
I don't think, by the way, I don't think it has been fulfilled yet for whatever that's worth.
I don't think it has been either.
I don't either.
Miss Bean Friend asked this question: is it true that the National Guard is after USA? Oh gosh, is after USA citizens, not just illegals and criminals? Who wants to take that one?
Can I plead the fifth on that one?
I mean, I think some citizens are getting caught up in this, pretty complicated thing. I have a solution to how they solve this, though.
Okay.
Chip everybody.
What did you say?
Chip everybody with a digital ID, then we'll know exactly who's who. I'm being a little bit facetious when I say that, but when those things come
as
about,
long as it's not on the skin, I'm good.
There'll be a practical reason why it's actually a good idea.
Right.
Yeah, so is it true that the National Guard is after USA citizens? No, not for a single moment. I do not believe that for a single moment.
No.
They are after illegals and criminals. We have laws on the books. Those laws need to be enforced. And, when we see the issues that we see that are happening in, Washington, D.C., Portland, Los Angeles, in Mississippi and Seattle, in all of these places here where these illegals are just running amok, guys. It's got to be dealt with. We should be enforcing the laws on the books and dealing with these things. It's not justice; it's injustice when we do not enforce those things. And I guarantee you, if it was any of our sons or daughters or grandsons or granddaughters that were being sexually molested, that were being killed, or any other number of these, shot multiple times, okay, I can guarantee you that people that are questioning that wouldn't be on the fence anymore. They'd be like, go get them. So, but no, that's part of the lie of the left, because the left is just so lost, it's just not even funny. So Mechanic 350 statement, Israel, this is their statement: Israel should completely take over the Gaza Strip and also Judea and Samaria. No Muslims governing the Gaza Strip, but only Israelis. And by the way, I will say, in Judea and Samaria, you have these different, I don't know if this is the best word for it, but kind of like tribal leaders there. So there's a lot of elements to that in Judea and Samaria. But nonetheless, listen, that land belongs to them. I agree. They need to stop capitulating, and I think that's what all of us have been saying here today, that they need to stop capitulating, and they just need to stand strong. And I'm not saying, by the way, and none of us are saying, by the way, for a single moment that's an easy thing to do. Okay, when you have hostages, when you have family and everything. I will say this. Speak for myself, I think I'm speaking for these fine gentlemen here as well, is that it surely is going to be an easier statement for us to say, go in and finish the job, when it's not our son or our daughter, that is there. And so I don't want it to sound cast or insensitive to the uniqueness, and neither do these men, to the uniqueness of the hour, if we would, okay? At the same time, the situation is going to continue to bring about even more death I mean, I see from what the IDF is sending every day. I'm reading this, and on this one and on that one, and may their memory, be with us, and of all of these different soldiers, and so I mean, it's a tough thing, for sure, but
Yeah, it's complicated because
it is.
like especially in Judea, Samaria, and you've got several generations of Arabs who have lived there
Right.
and in Israel and have children, grandchildren, great grandchildren, and so now you've got younger generations born into this thing that really did not belong to start with because their great parents were left in a place where they were made, overnight. They were created into political refugees and displaced people, and Palestinian created out of thin air. And now you've got people that really truly believe they're Palestinians, where it is complicated. But the land is the land of Israel that was given to the Jewish people by divine decree. It's in the Bible, and it's from a biblical perspective. Any Christian who reads their Bible and sees that the land does not belong to the Jewish people, they need to get new glasses, or they need to get read their Bible properly.
Take it up with God. I
That's
mean,
right.
That's all that we're going to say. Listen, just simply take that up with God. So Heather Margaret put on here, do you think Netanyahu will hit Gaza on October 7th? Let's get a quick answer on this, guys. What do you think, John?
Boy, that's an interesting question. I don't know. I think that a lot of things happen on anniversaries in the Middle East because people are trying to make a point. So I would suggest this. If it happens, I'll probably be doing a live stream about it from Israel because I'll be in Israel on October 7th.
I'll be watching for that. I'll be in Israel on October 20th through 30th later, but
Right.
I'll be watching for from your live stream if it happens. I don't think it will, because it's Israel is the master at doing things when it's the least expected.
Right.
And look at the pagers. I mean, how long have they worked on the pagers and nobody knew about it, and all of a sudden,
Right.
boom. So I could be wrong. Okay, I mean, if it does, it does. But my take is I don't think it will.
Yeah, that was a multi-year operation. So, and I think they actually had to pull the string on it a little bit sooner than they wanted to because it was being exposed or at threat of being exposed.
Right. And by the way, is something else that I want to say here, really brief, because I know that we're under the wire with time. I want to say that when we talk about the Palestinians and all this, let's understand something. Are those people that are called, or that call themselves Palestinians, are they a people? Yes, they're a people. But we cannot, so we're not saying that they're not human beings. We're not saying they're not a people. What we are saying is that they are not who they identify with any more than what was his name from the Wheaties, the boxes, the athlete. Now he goes by the name Bruce Jenner. No more than Bruce Jenner is identifying as, I think it's Caitlyn Jenner, isn't that the name? Identifies as a woman, but he's not a woman. He's still a man, okay? And these people that call themselves Palestinians, are they a people? Yes. Are they correctly identifying themselves as Palestinians? No, it's made up, and that is where the lie is. So just a distinction there. So, okay, we got two more we got to get through here pretty quick if we can. Observer 777 said Trump and Netanyahu demanded the release of hostages within 4 days. Why haven't they been released? Let's give this one here to Mr. Melnick.
Well, it goes back to the early comment I made on the show about, and you made the same comment in a different way, Kurt. You said, I'm going to count to three, and you're going to be disciplined. 5 more minutes, Dad. It's not looking good. I mean, going back, I suppose this person is making a reference to 2 years ago, or they're making a reference to this week, because 2 years ago they had like a couple of weeks to release the hostages, and we're going on 2 years now.
Right.
So it's not a good look on Trump. It's not a good look on anybody.
Well,
It's no,
yeah.
I think it's showing weakness, and really the only language that the Middle East understands is force.
100%. And when you don't use force, it is considered weakness
Yeah.
there to them, and they
And
play
submission.
and they play on that. Yes, and they play on that weakness. And I mean, what did Trump do at the beginning of the year? He said, I forget how many weeks or whatever it was going to be, that he gave the ultimatum to Hamas. Well, how many months are we into this? Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
again, all right. So last one here, Caterlin has this thought that she put out there, a statement she put out there. I think John and Britt should get a system like this to help with their questions on their round table. It would make it so much easier for them. Oh, that's funny. Okay, so thank you for sharing that. So yeah, so I use we have the system that we do here on Discord, and it works pretty well for us. So, but anyhow, so very quick here, because I want to make sure that we mention, Olivier, you've got a book that's coming out on October 7th. Can you please talk about that here for a moment?
Yeah, this anti-Semitism in the End Times with Harvest House Publishers, and it is a major update to the work that I published in, I believe, 2006, about 8 years ago. I published my anti-Semitism. So this one covers the events of October 7th, and it goes all the way, to about like 9 months ago. So it covers a lot of new information, and it's coming out on the second anniversary of October 7th in about a week. And you can find it right now. You can pre-order it on Amazon. Anti-Semitism in the End Times. Olivier Melnick. It's there.
And I'm sure that is going to be, folks, an absolute incredible read for everyone. I encourage you to check that out. You're definitely going to get a good and a right and a biblical perspective on these things. So thank you. So, and gentlemen, thank you so much for being on today's program. I know I kept you 9 minutes longer than I said I would, but thank you for your patience and everything. Thank you for being on. I think we had a great discussion, a very needful discussion, and to try and hopefully try and make some sense, I hope, out of the nonsense. Guys, listen, just keep on looking up. Keep your eyes on Jesus Christ, the author and the perfecter of your faith. And listen, as Scripture says, as the mountains are round about Jerusalem, so the Lord is round about His people. Make no mistake about that. God always keeps His word. Look forward to seeing you all next time, whether it's here, there, or in the air. God bless you guys.